Well, you did just call the NFC Championship game. What was that like? And also, obviously, some Carolina connections, CMC, Steve Wilkes, Sam Darnold, all of that. But what was it like calling that game, but also seeing someone like Christian and Coach Wilkes get a chance to go play for a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, those guys are close friends. Obviously, Christian's a guy that's a really dear friend of mine, and me and Wilkes go way back. I mean, Wilkes was with me in Chicago when I was just a young player, and then obviously reconnected again here in Charlotte with the Panthers. So, just to see guys like that, I've gotten to know Sam a little bit over the years. I don't go as far back with him. I just know him from his time here in Carolina. But, just to see those guys win, and you're always happy for your friends, right? But during the course of the game, I know people don't believe this, we don't cheer for teams. We don't cheer for players. When I say Christian McCaffrey is the Offensive Player of the Year, it's not because he's my buddy. It's because he's the best offensive non-quarterback, which is a whole different conversation. He's one of the best players in the league. I don't care what position he is. So when I say that, that's just because it's true. It's not because he's my buddy. I was not cheering for the 49ers because Kittle. I'm calling the game what it is. When Detroit was playing great, we tell them they're doing great, and vice versa. But it was an awesome experience. I mean, 57 million people watched it. The energy in the stadium was incredible. To watch a 17-point comeback, like in the span of the third quarter, was insane. So, I mean, to get a front row seat and be able to organize everything, all the moving parts, and bring that into people's homes and hopefully add an element to the broadcast that added some insight and interest in the game. That's what you dream about. Those are the games you want to do. Those are the games you love. The blowouts stink. They're boring. But, man, you get a game like that. You get a game like last year's Super Bowl. It's probably the next closest thing to like being on the sideline and like being directly involved as a player or coach. That you're not quite that close to it, but you're still like in the adrenaline of it, in the action, and that's the part of it I've really enjoyed.
It is kind of ironic, though. You did say this year we've had a lot of blowout games in the regular season. Then you get to the NFC Championship, probably thinking that's going to be the case, and then it gets
saved
crazy.
Our year. Yeah. We had a really weird year. Like, on paper, we had so many great matchups, and it was just blowout after blowout after blowout. And then first round of the playoffs, the wild card round, we got another blowout. Green Bay blew out Dallas, and we walked out of the stadium. We're like, we're doomed. We're cursed. We got an all-time amazing Super Bowl, and since then we've been cursed. But it flipped. We got an amazing divisional round game with San Francisco and Green Bay, and then, of course, culminating last week's game with with Detroit, taking a big lead, and then San Francisco coming back. The last 2 weeks salvaged what was a interesting season as far as lopsided scores.
Right. Well, and if I, type your name in Twitter or whatever comes up, everyone just loves what you do in the booth, like the way you present it, the way you can break it down for the average viewer at home and that kind of thing. So to have so many people be a fan of you in this next chapter of your career and what you've done in the few years that you've been in the booth, what does it mean to see, okay, this fan loved this, or they said this, or they understood this because of how I told the story, or even just your peers now that are, in the media? What does that mean? I mean,
look, everyone likes to be told that they do a good job. I had a teammate that told me years ago, and it's always stuck with me. He's like, you're never too old for an attaboy, right? Like, no one, I don't care how much success you've had, I don't care how confident you are in yourself and all that. Everyone likes to be told a good job, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say that it doesn't feel good, but I will say I'm also well aware how fast it can turn.
That's true.
And we are in a position when you're on television that everybody has an opinion, from what you wear to how your hair is done. Guys, we get judged on certain. It's the nature of the business. But the part about it that I've always gone into it saying is I enjoy the teaching element to it. I believe telling people why they're seeing what they see is more important than just telling people what they're seeing. And being able to do that in a fun and creative way and maybe take them into the mind of, okay, here's what the play caller is considering. Here's the two sides of the decision. Let's see what decision he makes, and then why does he make it? Like bringing people into the thought process, bringing people into the strategy, bringing people into, all right, on Wednesday, when they made these decisions, why, and why are we seeing it here on Sunday? Like that's the part that I think takes it a little bit deeper. And I think that, frankly, that's the part that people have enjoyed, right? I think people are not dumb, right? People are very smart. The modern NFL viewer understands the game. Now, whether you're the biggest sports fan in the world, they understand the game enough that you don't have to treat them like they're 5 years old. And I think having that respect for the viewer, but also saying, okay, I'm not going to talk over you like I'm talking in the locker room with the coaches and the players. There's a balance to that. And I think that's the balance that we try to strike. And whether we always do or not, I don't know, but we try to. So we try to find that, hey, we got 3 hours. I want you to leave the broadcast at the end of this game being like, you know what? I never had someone present it that way. That makes a lot of sense. I'm excited to watch them call another game and see what I learned from that. Like, if that's what people come away from our game saying, that makes me happy.
How do you prepare? Like, what goes into leading up to a game for you?
It's a lot. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Calling games is, I mean, it's not coaching or playing time, but it's time. It's a full-time job. It is 7 days a week. And, you know, you're reading articles, you're watching game film, you're talking to players and coaches, you're doing your own research. Nowadays, we're fortunate. There are so many outlets that provide really cool data and analytics and trends. I mean, I could find out, and we have a great research team with Fox who work directly with us. I mean, I could find out how many down linemen you have, what coverages you are good, what quarterback, how you do against this coverage versus this coverage and zone. You'd be shocked at the information that we can get and have access to. So from that and the film is where you start kind of generating your storylines and your talking points, and you prepare for all these different scenarios. And that way, no different than as a player, when the game starts, you just go. Right? You can prepare for it all, but it doesn't have to follow, and very rarely does it ever follow how you see it in your brain. And that's okay, but you've got to be ready that wherever it goes, you're comfortable taking it there, because we are at the mercy of the game. If we go in saying, okay, we're going to talk about these 5 things, but the game doesn't support that, it sounds like you're not watching the same game as everybody at home. And you learn that very quickly. So you have to call the game that's being played. You can't call the game that you predetermined in your head. And in order to do that, you got to put in time. You've got to know the players. You've got to know the coaches, the storylines. What do they typically do in these situations? Does the coach go for it on 4th down? That was a huge thing the other night. We said it early in the game. Like, Dan Campbell's going to go for 4th down tonight. You get yourself ready. It's going to happen. And then, you know, the 2 biggest, most talked about decisions of the game were just that. Like, you got to study the people to try to have a good idea of what's going to unfold.
For sure. And obviously, I have to ask, but how do you feel about the future of where you're at in the booth, and whether you're with the number 1 team or not, calling games next year?
I mean, all things indicate that Tom's going to come and do it, you know, from everything that we've heard, everything everyone's heard. What that means for me going forward is yet to be determined. You know, my goal, and Fox knows this from the very beginning, from the time I took the job, I said, I'm not taking this just content on being one of the crews. Like, I want to be the best crew. I want to be on the best crew and call the best games. If not, why I'm not going to waste my time. I don't have to do this. And they understood that, and I think they believe, and I think that's a big reason why they gave me the opportunity to call these games, because they believed in me and they trusted me that I wasn't going to, you know, embarrass them. But that goal hasn't ended. So, you know, when Tom comes, and if this opportunity, you know, goes away, then we'll see what else is out there. We'll see what else is in there internally at Fox. We'll see what else is out there around the league. But that goal doesn't change. And again, that doesn't mean necessarily next year I'll do it, but is there a clear path to getting back to a top team? That's the goal. And how that exactly plays out, I don't think anybody at this point knows.
Right. Would you trade the booth for coaching or a front office position at some point?
I'd be a head coach.
Yeah.
I would consider being a head coach. It'd be very hard to leave my current job. It's a good gig doing what I'm doing now. Coaching is a whole different animal. But if a unique opportunity presented itself that I got to run a team and really do things the way I would do things after being around it for a long time, I think anybody that loves football, anybody that's grown up in football like I have, and it's pretty much been their entire life for as long as they can remember, who wouldn't, right? Like, who wouldn't consider that? And whether those opportunities ever come or not, I don't know, but I have no doubt in my mind I could do it. Yeah. Zero doubt. And again, chances of me actually doing it are probably less likely than doing it, but there's no doubt in my mind I could do it.
And just speaking of head coaches and change, a lot of that going on in the league, of course, right here in Charlotte as well. What do you make of the GM hire in Dan Morgan and the head coaching hire in Dave Canales? Yeah,
listen, when I call Panther games, I don't root for the Panthers. The rest of the year, I live here. My kids are Panther fans. I want them wearing Panther gear to school. I want, one day I guess when I'm not working on Sunday, I want to go to Monday night games. I want to go to Thursday night games when if I'm not working. Like, we're Panther fans. This was my home. This is where I built my career. This is where I built my reputation and had the bulk of my success. Like, I want Dan to do well. I want Dave Canales to do well. Like, I root for those guys. I rooted for Frank Reich. I rooted for Fitterer. I want the organization to find stability and get back to a semblance of what we were not too long ago. And I think they're trying. I give Dave Tepper. You can't say Dave anymore because there's multiple Daves.
That up.
So you have to be very careful who you're talking about. I give Tepper a lot of credit. I mean, he's not just sitting on his hands saying, we'll let this play out. Like, if it's not right, fix it. So I hope this is right. I hope Dave Canales is the right hire. I know Dave well. I spent a year with him in Seattle and got to know him personally. One of the coaches I connected best with in my short time out there. So I'm rooting for him. I'm a fan of him. I would do whatever they would need for me to support them and whatnot. I want them to do well. I love Dan Morgan. I think he's smart. Obviously, we have a lot of ties back to Miami and have known him for a long time. So I hope they're the answers. I'm confident that they are. I have no reason to believe they're not. So they understand the job they have. They understand that it's going to be a tall one. I don't think anyone's just going to snap their fingers overnight and it's all of a sudden going to get miraculously better. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a step-by-step one that I think if they can just show consistent growth, they'll get the time. They'll get the leash to see it through, because obviously that hasn't been the case the last two times.
Yeah. I want to go back to you in coaching for just a second, because right now it's you and Luke Kuechly.
Correct.
Coaching. So what is that? Tell me about that before we wrap this interview up. But what's it like?
Yeah.
Kind of coordinating
Coaching
that with
Luke
him?
is awesome. We've done it the last 2 years. I think we'll do it again now as we transition into the middle school. My oldest son now will be a middle schooler. He's in middle. He'll be a 7th grader next year in the fall. So we'll do school ball. But it's been awesome. I do it with my dad, Luke, a couple other guys in town, and we've done it for the last 2 years, and we've had a blast. And you talk about a lot of work. Man, 11 and 12-year-old football is a lot of work, but it's awesome. We love it. We love the kids. It's equally challenging as it is frustrating as it is exhilarating. And it could be all of those things simultaneously for anyone who's worked with young kids before, let alone trying to teach them football, who a lot of them had never put on a helmet. Right. It was cool. And obviously doing it with one of your best buddies and with your dad and, getting in arguments and then making up, and it's football. We did it for our whole lives, and to do it together and to see Luke, he doesn't have a kid out there. I'm a dad. It's one thing for me to spend 3 hours, a handful of times a week teaching kids, because I got a kid out there. Right. It's one thing for my dad. He's got his grandson out there. Luke has no kids out there. He's just doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He's just doing it to give back to these kids. He's just doing it because he's Luke. And I think it's super special that he does it. I think it's super special that he gives up his time to do it. And the families, the parents, the kids, obviously everyone really appreciates it. I think that's probably an understatement. But we'll see how we do next year. We transition to school ball next year, so we'll see how we do.
Okay, perfect. Well, Greg, as always, great speaking to you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Nice talking to you too. Thank you.